Hey everyone, my name is Full Metal Lamps and I'm back with another video. This was going to be a small rant, again, similar to the Penny Old is Trash video, because in that video, I've had a couple comments that, disagree with me saying, oh, Thor ult is bad, Scarlet Witch ult is bad, blah 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 blah, all these other ults are bad, Penny ult is still okay. Well, first of all, in Season 4, they announced that they were going to buff Penny ult. Turns out they lied, because the ult is terrible and the buffs did nothing, and now is actually there's no other contender for the ult being terrible because they buffed every other ult that might have been a bad ult and left Penny in the dust, right? So basically, this video is just going to be me complaining about the ult again, explaining why it's bad, and then also telling all the people who told me I was wrong to suck it because you guys were wrong, always were wrong, and always will continue to be wrong. But yeah, if you guys want to check out more videos, more content from me, check out my Twitch at twitch.tv/fullmetallamp, or check out my YouTube lives. And yeah, let's get right into it. So, as of September 4th, 2025, this is about 7 days before Season 4 comes out, and I woke up an hour ago just to find out that the patch notes dropped. I read the patch notes, and I immediately told my Discord server that this is the worst buff they've given out for Peni Parker, and these buffs do nothing for Penny. It doesn't make her ult better, it doesn't make her better, and in the end, it's actually going to make Penny worse in the long run, because, well, I'll explain that in a sec. So first, what is the changes that they made with Peni Parker? Let's take a look. So we scroll down here. Peni Parker. Enemies caught in Penny webs are in for a stickier situation, and their ultimate ability just got slightly more threatening. Slightly is a key word here, right? So here, the first bullet point is going to be affecting her base kit, right? This doesn't apply to just her ult, it's both the ult and her regular abilities. So the Spider Drone new effect. It now slows hit enemies by 8% for 2 seconds, with each hit stacking the effect and resetting the slow period, stacking up to 40%. So basically, any drones, which are the small mines that follow you around when you're inside the webs, those are going to slow the enemy down every time they hit somebody, up to a total of 40% slow. And that comes from her regular nest, her ult, her team up nest, and the rocket res beacon, right? Anything that's inside the webs, they're going to get hit by these drones and get slowed down. And then the actual ult buff itself is they reduce the spider drone release interval during the ultimate ability from 0.7 seconds to 0.5 seconds. So basically, you're going to be having more drones passively released from your ult when you're ulting. So if you read this and thought, well, that doesn't seem like much, you would be correct, because these changes don't affect Penny ult in a significant way. It doesn't affect her base kit in a significant way, and these are nowhere near close to fixing the actual core issues with Penny's ult. Right? First of all, let's get this out of the way. Like, let me just ask this question to you, right? Whenever you have somebody stuck inside your webs and they get hit by drones, how likely is it that they were able to live simply because they just weren't slowed down enough, right? Like 9 times out of 10, I'll even say 9.9 times out of 10, whenever somebody is inside your nest and getting hit by the drones, they're either already going to be dead because they're too deep into the drones and they're going to get hit by all of them, or they're going to just bait out a couple drones and walk in and walk back out. Basically, my point is, the drones were already going to either guarantee a kill, or the slow wouldn't matter to the point where it's going to give you a breaking point to where you can get a kill now, right? So this just isn't an applicable buff, because it's just not, like, it's never going to happen, right? So the only times this effect would probably even take place is either you're going against a tank who is now going to be slowed by your drones because they have enough HP to survive the initial drone burst in the first place, but usually they're going to be out of the drones or the webs in the first place by the time they get hit by some of the drones. So the slow doesn't really do much for you as Penny, because it's just not going to be really all that useful. The other only time where the drone effect would actually take place is if people are inside a support ult and walking through your nest because they don't care about the damage from the nest, right? And if they're already inside a support ult, chances are they're not going to be dying any faster just because they're slowed down by some percentage. Because again, like if I'm in a Luna ult and I walk towards the drones and I'm getting slowed down, that really isn't going to increase my chances of getting killed, because again, I'm inside of Luna ult anyway, right? If all I needed was a 40% reduction in movement speed, well then shit, I might as well just go like Black Widow and just spam her ult off cooldown, right? But that's like not the case. And this just won't increase like help you at all. And also, another issue with this is this doesn't increase playmaking potential, you know? Like the only time this okay, you know what? I scratch that. I take that back. The third time that this would actually be applicable is if you're 1v1ing a person and you're dropping your nest down and then you're slowing them down, right? Now, obviously, the drones aren't going to be doing all that much because even in that situation where your nest, let's say, only drops 2 drones and slows them down, it's going to be 16% total for 2 seconds. But again, like that shouldn't just be that's not a significant game changer. By the time you're 1v1ing a character anyway, you most likely are going to win just based off your HP alone and the fact that you have a 3-second stun. But I guess that is technically a third potential use for it, right? But again, that's still not relevant to the ult itself because the spider drone new effect is still a lot more useful than the ult itself, or the ult buff that they gave Penny. Because dropping like 7 more drones, 8 more drones than you usually do in the ult doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You're not. The reason why you're not getting kills on Penny isn't because you didn't have enough drones, right? It might be because you don't have enough melees, or maybe because your melee doesn't do anything useful, or maybe because you don't have enough mines, or maybe because you don't have enough mobility, or CC immunity, or vertical mobility, or defensive abilities, right? But no, it was just simply because you didn't have 8 more drones than usual. Like that's just not the issue. But the devs just don't understand that. And I wish I could say that my last video, that the Penny ult is trash video, was like maybe able to incentivize the dev team to make a couple changes with Penny, but I mean that video didn't do all that great, relatively speaking. Not to the point where Marvel dev teams would certainly be looking out for it and be aware of it, but I just don't understand the devs team's thought process with Penny Parker, because they make her base kit really strong, right? Again, this patch note makes me confused on how contradicting themselves constantly, because they made the base kit better for Penny, and then when you ult, you lose all access to your base kit anyway, right? You can't pick up your nest, you can't place your nest down, and yet they're going to buff the things that only produce from the nest. Like why would you do that, right? How are you going to have her ult and then lose every single ability that she had before she ulted, including her zipline, her wall climb, her nest placement, her second nest placement, her web stun, right? She can't use any of those abilities, but they keep buffing the random shit that doesn't apply to her ult. Or even the headshot buff. You can't headshot with your ult. So again, it's just another pointless buff that doesn't affect her ult. And in the end, in the future, if they keep giving pointless buffs to Penny that don't really change anything, and they leave the ult untouched or still bad, eventually they're just going to have to nerf Penny because, quote-unquote, she's too overtuned. But at the same time, her ult is terrible, so she's just not going to be useful because her ult is bad, they didn't change the ult, and they're nerfing her other parts of the kit because her base kit is just too good now, which isn't the issue, because in this game, especially for Marvel Rivals, having a good ult is pretty much essential to winning the game. And if your ult is terrible, but your base kit is good, you're pretty much just doing a 5v6 in terms of ult battles, right? Like, why would you not just go Emma Frost or Magneto over a Penny Parker? Because their ults cost the same amount, you build ult around the same time, but Magneto ult and Emma Frost ult is just 99.99999% better than Penny Parker ult, even with 15 different drone setups. Like if you had the ability to Loki copy a rocket, and then now you have like 2 more nests and 2 more rocket res beacons and connect it all together with your ult, it still wouldn't do anything. It still wouldn't make Penny better. Her ult is just trash. Like I said on my intro, a lot of people in my comments in my Penny ult is trash video were saying, hey, you know, this ult is actually worse than Penny, or Penny ult's not that bad, at least it's not blank. But you guys fail to realize that the dev team at NetEase decided to say, fuck all of you, we're going to buff every other ult that you guys said was bad, and we're going to leave Penny in the dust. Because the 5 ults that people would argue are bad or as bad as Penny would be 1. Thor, 2. Scarlet Witch, 3. Mr. Fantastic, 4. Black Widow, and 5. Jeff the Land Shark. So yeah, people will often say, "Oh, you know, Penny Parker's ult isn't that bad. At least it's not Thor's." But the dev team decided to increase the movement speed during the ultimate ability from 600 to 700 for Thor. So in season 4, they're gonna make Thor ult move faster during the ult, which is a lot better than Penny Parker because, by the way, she can't wall climb or zip line anywhere, and her movement speed is terrible. But with Thor, his ult literally sends it flying up into the air to hit people in the sky in the first place. So he already has a plus in vertical mobility, and then now he's getting a movement speed boost. And then after the ult lands with Thor, he's able to stun the surrounding enemies for 1 second. Guys, they gave Thor a stun ability ult before they gave Penny a stun ability ult. Penny's the only character in the game with the shortest cooldown on stuns, and they gave her ult a non-stun based ability. Why are we even discussing this right now? Her ult is actually just the worst tank ult in the game, and I would argue the worst ult in the game, period. But people aren't ready for that because they're just too ready to defend their Spider Queen, quote unquote. So Thor ult already better than Penny ult. Just from this change, these two changes alone just mog all of the buffs they've given Penny in all past seasons, right? All of them combined, they still don't match up to this Penny this Thor ult change right now in season 4. Let's look at what's it called? Let's look at Scarlet Witch. By the way, they increased her ult damage from 800 to 9,999. So nothing in the game can survive getting hit by Scarlet Witch ult anymore, and so you have to absolutely kill her or stun her. Whereas before you could potentially live with 100 HP from the ult from Scarlet Witch. Now you're guaranteed dead, so already a plus for Scarlet Witch. But now she has a new effect where she pulls in nearby enemies within a 15-meter radius during the cast charge. So Scarlet Witch also has a CC ability that slowly pulls people inside her ultimate, like a weaker Graviton Surge from Overwatch, if you guys knew what Zarya was and her ult. She pulls in people closer to your ult, but Penny still doesn't have an ability to stun or slow people down or pull them in or towards your mines, and instead you have to go physical and walk into the enemy team. So that's perfect. Now, Black Widow and Mr. Fantastic didn't get any changes to their ults, but their ults are still good. Like, you guys will say they're bad, but they're still just so much better than Penny Parker. You guys don't understand. With Fantastic ult, he's CC immune, he has some sort of vertical mobility with his bounces, he has the ability to combo and force out support ults a lot better because he can do a lot of direct damage, he gets a lot of HP with his ult, and it's just, his kit complements his ult, right? You can use his abilities to farm up the damage and the amount of bonus HP you get before you ult, and then you use your ult, and then you have all of your abilities that like help you survive even longer after the ult finishes. So Fantastic ult isn't actually bad at all, especially because the damage you do with the ult is just drastically more damage than Penny ult ever does. And also with Black Widow, you have the potential to one-hit KO a lot of characters in the game, or a lot of squishy characters in the game with any amount of damage boost. I'm pretty sure a Mantis damage boost can allow you to pretty much one-shot any character in the game. Well, not any character in the game, but most squishies in the game as Black Widow, a Rocket damage boost, a Luna damage boost, all those are going to pretty much give you like a guaranteed pick on 2 to 3 people depending on where you fire it. And its slow is actually direct, and it can be fired from any direction from a large distance because Black Widow doesn't need to be playing in the middle of point to be using her ult properly and get value out of it. Whereas with Penny Parker, you could stand on the middle of point and still not directly slow the enemy team down. You can't directly hit them out of the air like if you were wanting to hit a flyer, let's say. Because we all know flyers don't get hit by drones, and so your ult on point doesn't do anything. Whereas at least Scarlet Witch ult is guaranteed to slow you even if you're a little bit higher up into the air, because it just has like a higher hitbox radius up into the sky. Oh, also, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Penny doesn't get damage boosted. Like her abilities don't get affected by any damage boost in the game. It doesn't matter if you stack a Mantis boost, a Storm boost, a Rocket damage boost, and a Luna damage boost onto Penny Parker. Her mines are still going to do 100 damage, and her drones are still going to do 40 damage apiece. You can't buff the nest production and make the mines do more damage or whatever, because that's just not how the game works. So with Black Widow, you can damage boost her, and she can potentially get a one-hit KO on like a team of 4 with her ult alone. But with Penny Parker, you could give her 5 different damage boosts, and it still wouldn't affect her mind damage or her drone damage. And the only thing it would change would be her melee, which only does 60 damage as the base part of the kit anyway, and her headshots, which can do pretty much up to 45, or well, they do 45 if you do hit a headshot and 30 without. So unless you really think those damage boosts are going to change how many kills you're going to get on Peni Parker, you just don't even actually get the full benefit of a damage boost. That's how bad Peni is. And then the 5th hero that we haven't talked about, Jeff the Land Shark, right? People hate this ult because it's not a healing ult, and you can't heal your team while you're doing damage and taking people away and kidnapping them. Well, guess what? Guess what the dev team did this season? With Jeff, it now leaves a 8-meter radius healing pool at the point of activation, so where you eat, that heals allies within the range by 100 healing per second, and it lasts for 8 seconds, right? So now, Jeff can kidnap some people away, and also, anybody who's standing where the Jeff ulted originally is going to get healed for a total of 800 healing per second for 8 seconds total. So even now, with Jeff ult, you actually can get healed outside of it, but with Peni ult, hey, you're gonna get 8 more drones. Yay! Perfect, that's exactly what Peni needed. 8 more passive drones, which, again, this ult doesn't, these ult changes don't even complement like skilled gameplay. It's just more like mind-numbing, brain-dead Peni passive gameplay, and people in Platinum and Diamond and Grandmaster and below are going to be like, oh, Peni Parker's so OP because she can just AFK, whereas in One Above All, Celestial, Eternity Elo, people are going to complain about Peni Parker because her ult does fucking nothing, and her buffs do nothing to her anytime she does get buffed. Also, I really should have emphasized this point during my last video, but Hulk and Peni Parker have the same amount of ult charge. It takes up the same amount of time to build their ults and use their ults, but Hulk ult is just 99% better than Peni ult. Because the difference between the two ults is, one, whenever Peni ults, she gets extra 450 HP on top of her existing HP. So if she's at 200 HP, she's going to get 450 plus, so a total of 650 HP, right? With Hulk, whenever you press Q, you instantly get 1,400 HP. It doesn't matter if you're at 1 HP or at 1,399 HP, you're going to be guaranteed 1,400 HP after you come out of your Monster Hulk, or after you use your Monster Hulk form. And also, when you're transforming and using your ult, you don't get CC stunned as Hulk, right? You can't stop a Hulk from transforming into Monster Hulk, but you can stop a Peni from transforming into her monster Peni quote-unquote form. So her long duration and her long animation time and her long de-animation time, you can stun her during all of that, but with Hulk, you can only stun him after his transformation has been completed or after it's been de-transformed. So Peni Parker has those two things going against her, that including the fact that Monster Hulk actually increases the base kit, either the damage and the cooldown reduction. So his base kit is already good, and they made it even better with the Hulk ult. They still gave him vertical mobility, unlike Peni Parker, who can't zipline or wall climb or do anything to increase her movement abilities. And she doesn't have access to her kit, whereas Hulk does. And Hulk actually has a CC ability, his Exile, right? But Peni Parker doesn't have access to her Web Stun. So how are we putting Peni ult in the same tier as Hulk, Magneto, and Emma Frost in terms of ult cost, but then make her ult not even remotely close to being as good as any of those characters, right? And my biggest issue with the dev team is that they continue to make the ult more and more dependent on the nest by buffing the nest itself and never buffing the ult in general, right? And I mentioned this in the previous video, but Emma Frost doesn't need her diamond form for her ult to be good. Doctor Strange doesn't need his shield for the ult to be good. Magneto doesn't need his right click or his bubble or his shield for his ult to be good. But with Peni Parker, you need to have a nest setup for 15 seconds for 10 drones to come out, and also you need to have the webs placed down, and you need to have another rocket team up connected all together. So it just doesn't make sense to me that Peni has all these prerequisites for her ult, just for her ult to have mediocre damage anyway, no AoE CC of any kind besides the slow, which has now been implemented, which still isn't as good as literally stunning the entire enemy team like Strange, Thing, and Emma Frost does, and Groot. And we just continue to go into the direction of buffing Peni's base kit instead of actually touching the ult itself. because again, they keep wanting to make Penny reliant on the nest, but no other characters relying on their secondary abilities for their ult to be good, and even then, they have way better outcomes than Penny does. Because even if I were to put a slow on every single member of the enemy team, I'd still just rather have a ability that stops you from using your ult or stops you from being able to move and shoot at all in the first place, like Strange does. But as long as they keep buffing the nest and making the ult entirely reliant on the nest while also making it incredibly difficult for your ult and your nest to be set up in the first place, then Penny's just not going to be in the right direction. They just keep buffing it in the wrong way, and it's just garbage. It's terrible. Also, this is the fail-proof argument as to why Penny's ult changes and her ult itself is still going to be bad in Season 4. And these are just the 3 reasons you need to point out anytime you're against a delusional Penny player who thinks that the ult is actually good. 1. The ult is way too conditional, right? It requires, in order for her only CC ability in her ult form to be activated, you have to have the enemy team walk inside the web area. They have to be somehow in the web area and stay in the web area, because once they stay in the web area, the drones are going to take some time to travel to them. We have to make sure that the drones actually do continue to follow them and not follow somebody else who's also in the webs, or just because the character jumped one time, the drones are going to stop following them and then start following them once they hit the ground again. It's so conditional that even just getting that first drone to activate is going to be incredibly difficult, because the drone tracking is terrible. The AI on that is really, really bad. I don't know how it works, but the formula just doesn't work. 2, it's not ranged, right? Penny Parker isn't supposed to be a melee character, but now we force her to become a melee character in the ult, and then in order for her webs to spawn on the ground, she has to physically walk up towards where the enemy team is. So if you want to slow down an Emma Frost or a Groot, what are you going to do? You have to walk towards the Groot. And what is the Groot going to do? He's going to wall you off. What is the Emma Frost going to do? She's going to diamond form you, right? It's just, you can't be walking into the enemy team and expecting the ult to be good when someone like Emma Frost or Thing or Doctor Strange also have wide AoE stun abilities, and they can do it from a relative distance, or because their AoE is so large and it affects such a wide area, it doesn't matter that they're so close in the first place, right? And also, those are actual stuns, not slows like Penny ult. If Penny ult actually stunned people, then that might actually make this ult decent. But it doesn't. If the drone stunned people in the ult specifically, then that would be really amazing. That would probably be the best, like a top 5 ult in the game, or top 5 tank ult in the game, which doesn't mean a lot, but it's definitely better from last place. And then the third and final point is that Penny ult is just, it's not a proper AoE CC. It's not a Doctor Strange. It's not an Emma Frost. It's not a Thing. It's not a Groot. It's just slowing people down. It's a glorified Black Widow ult, and people say Black Widow ult is terrible, but Black Widow ult can actually one-shot people. Penny ult can't. It just can't. And also, it's not ranged. And also, you can't fire it from a long distance and shoot people out of the air with the ult. You can only hit people in the ground. So flyers are automatically just going to win over you without even having to use any abilities, because your ult is terrible, right? If you think Penny ult is still good after hearing all of those reasonings and a lot more that's in my previous video, then you might just have delusions. If you want a more in-depth reasoning on why Penny's ult is bad, I list out 13 different reasons in the other video, and also a couple different ideas of what I think could be potential good solutions or good changes or reworks for her ult. But the dev team they just don't understand how Penny Parker works and what they need to do to make her not a noob stomper, but also viable in high elo. Because until they fix her ult, she will never be good. She will never be good in ranked. She will never be good in competitive. She'll never be good in tournament settings, right? You just never see a Penny in MRC or MRI or in the best ranking teams of the game. You're never gonna see a Penny because her ult is just terrible. And the dev team is continuing to give Penny buffs that make her even more of a noob stomper, right? She's like really OP in bronze and gold and silver and plat, according to a lot of players, and they ban Penny all the time down there. But these changes that they give Penny, they're just going to make her even stronger in those elos, but not do a single thing in high elo, like One Above All and Celestial, where I'm playing her. And so we're just gonna be like Penny players are just screwed because her ult is held back, but she just gets an increase in base effects, which makes her more likely to be banned in lower elo. So if you're trying to play Penny and climb your way out of the middle ranks and try to get to Grandmaster or Celestial, you just can't because people are banning Penny for the wrong reasons. And even if she doesn't get banned, her ult is so terrible you can't climb and win fights anyway because you just don't have a sixth ult when you're playing the game. It's like playing a 5v6 without a sixth player because your ult just does nothing and you have no presence the entire time. I mean, like, I don't know. This video went on longer than I thought it would, but I mean, it was my first thoughts after I read those patch notes after waking up, and I mean, Jesus, man. I really just don't know what they're going to do. And I swear, if in season 4.5 or season 5, or even during the half season, they just decide to nerf Penny randomly, I'm going to probably quit the game because all these random buffs and people saying, I'll take anything over nothing. They don't understand the effects of like this exact same thing happens in Overwatch, where they just keep buffing and buffing and buffing a character and they never get better until at one point that character just becomes so OP because they got like 17 buffs in this past, 3 patch notes. And it just makes the character unplayable before, unplayable now, and unplayable in the future because they just don't know how to properly balance them. But I mean, that's the end of the rant, I guess. If you guys want to see more of my content, subscribe to the YouTube, check out my Twitch, twitch.tv/fullmetallamp, no S, and join the YouTube lives. I reach out all the time, while playing the game. I crash out and yell at people, so it might be fun to watch and make fun of me. But yeah, have a good day, y'all. I will not, but yeah.